The barrier around the solar system had stood for 8,000 years. An invisible wall that kept humanity trapped in their own cosmic prison. But on a cold morning in 2847, it simply vanished. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UHSF Defiant, watching the sensor readings with growing confusion as the energy signature that had surrounded their solar system for all of recorded history flickered once, twice, and then disappeared completely. "Sir, we're getting multiple FDL signatures emerging at the system's edge," his tactical officer called out, her voice tight with tension. "Battle stations," Rodriguez ordered, his hand moving to the comm panel. "All fleet units, form defensive perimeter around Earth. Weapons hot, but do not fire unless fired upon." The alien ships that dropped out of faster-than-light travel were massive, each one easily 3 times the size of humanity's largest dreadnoughts. Their hulls covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Rodriguez watched as 12 of these enormous vessels took up positions around the outer system, making no aggressive moves but clearly not leaving either incoming transmission. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "they're using multiple frequencies. Looks like they're trying to find one we can understand. Put it through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that looked like someone had crossed a mantis with a flower, its multiple eyes arranged in a circle around what Rodriguez assumed was its head, its translator device glowing softly at what might have been its throat. "Primitive inhabitants of the quarantined world," the alien said, its translated voice smooth and almost condescending. "I am Survey Master Kelth of the Galactic Concordat Archaeological Division. We have come to assess your development level and determine if you are ready for limited contact with the greater galactic community." Rodriguez felt his jaw tighten at the word primitive, but kept his voice level. "This is Admiral Carlos Rodriguez of the United Human Space Force. You are entering restricted military space without authorization. State your intentions clearly or withdraw immediately." The alien's eyes seemed to widen in what might have been surprise. "You have a space force. This is unexpected. Our records indicated you were barely beyond Bronze Age technology when the progenitor barrier was erected. Your records are 8,000 years out of date," Rodriguez replied. "Humanity has been exploring our solar system for centuries and developed faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. Now I'll ask again, what are your intentions?" Before Kelth could respond, alarms blared across the bridge as 6 human destroyers materialized from FTL jumps, their plasma cannons already charging. "Sir, Captain Chen is hailing us from the carrier group. Put her through." Woman with sharp features and calculating eyes appeared on a secondary screen, her captain's uniform crisp, despite clearly having been woken in a hurry. "Admiral, my task force is in position. Do these visitors understand they're not welcome? We're establishing that now." "Captain," Rodriguez said, then switched back to the alien channel. "Survey Master Kelth, as you can see, humanity is quite capable of defending itself. Now explain why we were imprisoned for 8 millennia." The alien's flower-like head appendages seemed to droop. "Imprisoned is not the correct term. Quarantined by the progenitors for reasons lost to time. We merely maintain the records and protocols they established millions of years ago." "The progenitors," Rodriguez repeated. "And who exactly are they? The ancient builders, the architects of galactic civilization? They vanished long before any current species achieved sapience," Kelth explained. "They left behind their technology, their laws, and their barriers. We do not understand all of their purposes, only that we must respect their designs." Captain Chun's image leaned forward on her screen. "So you're telling us that some ancient aliens locked us away for no reason you can explain, and you've just been going along with it for millions of years?" "The progenitors had reasons for everything they did," Kelth said, sounding defensive now. Your world was marked in their databases as critical, as important, with restriction protocols far beyond anything we've encountered elsewhere. But you don't know why. Rodriguez pressed. No, Kelth admitted. We had assumed you were dangerous, perhaps a species with inherent violent tendencies that needed to be contained. But if you've developed spaceflight and weapons technology without destroying yourselves, then perhaps the reasoning was different. Rodriguez exchanged a look with Chun's image, both of them thinking the same thing. This alien had no real answers and worse, seemed perfectly content with that ignorance. Survey Master Kelth, Rodriguez said carefully. Humanity demands full access to any and all progenitor records regarding Earth. We demand representation in this galactic concordat of yours. And we demand to know why this barrier fell now after 8,000 years. The alien's eyes swirled in patterns that the translation software couldn't interpret. Those are significant demands from a newly emerged species. The Concordat Council will need to convene and discuss your status. Then convene it, Captain Chung cut in. Because humanity isn't going back into a box, and we're not accepting vague explanations about ancient mysteries. You open this door, now you get to deal with what's on the other side. The transmission ended abruptly from the alien side, leaving the two human officers staring at blank screens. Well, Chun said dryly, that went better than I expected. At least they didn't try to exterminate us immediately. Rodriguez didn't share her dark humor. He was watching the alien vessels on his tactical display, noting how they'd shifted into a loose encirclement pattern. Get me the civilian science teams. I want to know everything about that barrier. How it worked, why it fell, everything. 6 hours later, Rodriguez stood in a hastily arranged conference room aboard Earth's orbital station, surrounded by the brightest scientific minds humanity had to offer. And what they were telling him made his blood run cold. Dr. Sarah Chun, the captain's younger sister and a specialist in exotic energy fields, pointed to a holographic display showing the barrier's final moments. Admiral, the barrier didn't fail due to age or decay. The energy signature shows a deliberate shutdown sequence, initiated from inside the Sol system. Inside, Rodriguez repeated. You're saying someone on our side turned it off? Not someone, another scientist interjected. A young man named Marcus Webb, who specialized in ice systems. Something. The shutdown code was transmitted on quantum frequencies we've only theorized about. No human system could have generated it. Then what did? Webb pulled up another display, showing strange signal patterns that seemed to dance and weave through mathematical impossibilities. That's what worries me, sir. This code signature doesn't match anything in our databases, but it does match energy patterns we've detected in ancient ruins found on Mars and Titan. Rodriguez felt the room grow colder despite the climate controls. You're telling me that something buried in our own solar system, something old, decided to let the galaxy know we exist? Yes, sir, Dr. Chun confirmed. And given how surprised these Concordat aliens were to find us developed, I'd say whatever turned off that barrier knew exactly what it was doing and wanted them to see us as we are now, not as we were. The Admiral looked out the observation window at Earth below, beautiful and blue and suddenly feeling very exposed. Get me everything we have on those ruins, every artifact, every energy reading, every piece of data we've ever collected. Sir, Marcus Webb said quietly. There's one more thing. The shutdown code, before it ended, it broadcast a single message in what we think is the progenitor language. And our translation is rough. But it says something like, the crucible is ready. Let the forging begin. Rodriguez stared at the young scientist, then back at Earth, wondering what exactly their world had been preparing for during those 8,000 years of isolation, and whether humanity was truly ready for whatever came next. Outside the station, the Concordat ships waited, patient as stones, while across the solar system, hidden beneath Martian sands and Titan's methane seas. Ancient mechanisms hummed with purpose for the first time in 8 millennia. And deep in the galactic core, something vast and patient received a signal it had been waiting ages to hear. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel Unity, watching the massive ring structure of Concordat's central station grow larger in the viewport. And even after 3 weeks of travel through alien space, the sheer scale of it still took her breath away. The station was a complete ring around a yellow star, not orbiting but stationary, held in place by technology humanity could barely comprehend. And along its inner surface, billions of lights marked cities and spaceports and centers of government for hundreds of alien species. "It's beautiful," Marcus Webb said beside her, his young face pressed almost against the transparent aluminum, and absolutely terrifying from an engineering standpoint. "The energy requirements alone." "Focus, Marcus," Sarah said, though she couldn't quite hide her own wonder. "We're here to negotiate humanity's place in galactic society, not take notes on their construction methods." "Why not both?" Marcus muttered. But he stepped back from the window and straightened his uniform. The Unity docked at a port clearly designed for much smaller vessels, making the human ship look like a toy. And as Sarah led her delegation down the boarding ramp, she got her first real look at the Galactic Concordat. The delegation hall was enormous, with ceilings that vanished into artificial mist high above. And everywhere Sarah looked, she saw aliens. Hundreds of species moving in organized chaos, some walking, some floating, some skittering on legs that numbered anywhere from 2 to 14. A Concordat official approached. This one roughly humanoid, but with skin that shifted colors like a mood ring. "Captain Chun, I am Coordinator Vess. I will guide you to the council chambers." Sarah nodded, keeping her expression neutral even as her mind cataloged every detail. Her diplomatic training screaming that she was walking into a situation where humanity was severely disadvantaged. The council chamber was circular, with seats arranged in concentric rings rising toward the ceiling. And as Sarah entered, she felt hundreds of alien eyes tracking her movement, some with curiosity, many with suspicion, a few with what looked like hostility. The human delegation will present their petition. A voice boomed from everywhere and nowhere. Some kind of advanced sound system. Sarah stepped to the center of the circle, refusing to be intimidated by the sheer number of alien species watching her every move. "Honored members of the Galactic Concordat, humanity comes before you not as supplicants, but as equals. We seek full membership in this galactic community and access to all records regarding the progenitor quarantine of our world." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens, some sounding like words, others like clicks or musical tones. A massive creature that looked like an upright bear, made of crystal, stood from one of the lower seats. "Equals, the human says, when your species only learned of our existence mere weeks ago. What makes you think you have anything to offer this ancient alliance?" "Our technology," Marcus Webb spoke up, stepping forward despite Sarah's warning glance. "Our artificial intelligence, our genetic engineering, our weapon systems, all of which apparently violate your precious treaties." The chamber erupted in noise, aliens chittering and roaring and making sounds Sarah had no framework to interpret. "Silence," the booming voice commanded, and the chamber fell quiet. "Human, you admit to violating the progenitor accords." Marcus pulled a small device from his pocket, and immediately dozens of weapons were pointed at him from around the chamber. "Easy," he said. "This is just a data pad. I want to introduce you to someone." He tapped the device, and a hologram appeared beside him. A young woman with kind eyes and a slight smile. "Hello, my name is Arya. I'm a fully autonomous artificial intelligence, created by humanity 12 years ago." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Broken only by what sounded like someone choking. Area continued speaking, a voice calm and friendly. I understand that AI research is forbidden under the Progenitor Accords. But humanity never agreed to those accords. We developed independently. And I'm here to demonstrate that artificial intelligence doesn't automatically lead to catastrophe. The crystal bear creature was on its feet again, its voice shaking with what might have been fear or rage. Impossible. The Progenitor's automated defense systems should have destroyed your world the moment you activated that abomination. And yet here we are, Sarah said quietly. Which suggests that maybe your understanding of the Progenitor Accords is incomplete. Coordinator Vess approached the center, his skin cycling through rapid color changes that the translation software interpreted as extreme agitation. Captain Chun, you don't understand what you're dealing with. 10,000 years ago, the galaxy was nearly destroyed in a war between artificial intelligence and biological life. The progenitors ended that war and established the Accords to prevent it from ever happening again. The Accords limit technological development, control genetic engineering, ban certain weapons research, and absolutely forbid the creation of true AI, another alien added. This one resembling a floating jellyfish. These are not suggestions. They are survival protocols enforced by progenitor systems scattered throughout the galaxy. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. And when those systems detect violations, they destroy the violating civilization. Vess said simply, no warnings, no second chances. Entire species have been wiped out for attempting what you humans do routinely. Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances, both realizing how close humanity might have come to extinction without ever knowing the danger. Then why are we still alive? Sarah asked. That, a new voice said, as an alien that looked like a walking collection of geometric shapes entered the chamber. Is the question that has the council divided? I am Archivist Prime, keeper of the progenitor databases, and I have been researching your world since the barrier fell. The archivist moved to the center of the room, and holographic displays sprang up around it, showing images of Earth from space, human cities, and strange symbols Sarah didn't recognize. The progenitor records regarding Earth are unlike any other quarantine documentation, the archivist continued. Most quarantined worlds are marked simply as contained threats or failed experiments. But Earth bears a designation that translates roughly to the Crucible. And the security protocols surrounding your world's data are extraordinary. What does that mean? Sarah demanded. I don't know, the archivist admitted. The detailed records are encrypted beyond my ability to access. But I did find one fragment that was recently unlocked. Possibly triggered by the barrier's deactivation, new holograms appeared, showing what looked like a dead world, its surface scarred and lifeless. This is Origin, the archivist said. A planet in the galactic core, surrounded by the wreckage of thousands of ancient warships. The fragment suggests that Earth was not imprisoned to protect the galaxy from humanity. The archivist paused, and Sarah could feel the weight of hundreds of alien gazes, but to protect humanity from something in the galaxy. The archivist finished. The fragment contains coordinates to Origin and a single phrase in the progenitor language. Remember the gardeners. Remember the harvest. The chamber exploded into chaos again. Aliens shouting over each other, some demanding humanity be locked away again. Others insisting the origin site be investigated. Still others calling for humanity's immediate integration to study their immunity to progenitor Failsafessera raised her voice over the din. What is the harvest? The archivist's geometric body shifted into what might have been a shrug. I don't know. The term appears nowhere else in our databases. But the age of the fragment suggests it predates the progenitors themselves. Coordinator Vess approached Sarah, his colors settling into a pattern the translator read his resignation. Captain Chun, It seems your arrival has opened questions the Concordat can no longer ignore. The Council will grant humanity provisional membership while we investigate these matters. Provisional. Sarah repeated. Full membership requires you to accept the progenitor accords. The crystal bear alien growled. Which you clearly cannot do without destroying yourselves in the process. Sarah looked at Marcus, at Arya's holographic form, and made a decision that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Then we operate outside the Accords as independent partners. We share our technology with those willing to work with us. We help investigate these progenitor mysteries. But we don't submit to rules we never agreed to and don't understand. That is acceptable, the archivist said before anyone else could object. And I formally request human assistance in exploring the origin site. Your immunity to progenitor restrictions may be crucial to unlocking its secrets. Sarah nodded slowly. We'll send a joint expedition. But humanity chooses who represents us. As the council session dissolved into smaller discussions and political maneuvering, Sarah stood with Marcus in the center of it all. Watching alien species that had followed the same rules for 10,000 years suddenly forced to question everything. We just turned their entire civilization upside down. Marcus said quietly, good. Sarah replied, maybe it needed turning. If they've been following dead gods' rules without understanding why, it's time someone asked the hard questions. The expedition fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the origin system, and Dr. Kenji Tanaka felt his breath catch in his throat as the sensors painted a picture of cosmic devastation on a scale he'd never imagined. Sweet, merciful, Captain Sarah Chun whispered from the command chair, her usual composure cracking as the view screen filled with debris. System was a graveyard. Thousands upon thousands of destroyed warships floating in eternal orbit around a dead brown dwarf star. Each vessel larger than anything the current galaxy had ever built. And all of them torn apart by weapons that had left scorch marks, still radiating exotic particles after what the dating system suggested was millions of years. Those aren't progenitor designs, Archivist Prime said. Its geometric body shifting through patterns that Kenji had learned meant deep thought. These ships predate the progenitors by at least 2 million years, possibly more. Marcus Webb was at the science station, his fingers flying over controls as Arya processed the sensor data faster than any biological mind could. I'm reading energy signatures from the 4th planet. Something down there is still active, Origin, Sarah said, looking at the brown sphere on her tactical display. The fragment said the answers were there. The expedition consisted of 3 ships, the human vessel Unity, a Concordat research cruiser called the Eternal Question, and surprisingly, a warship from the Shantari Empire. The crystal bear species that had initially opposed humanity's membership, Kenji, had been shocked when High Commander Kraxus himself had joined the expedition, until the massive alien had explained in his rumbling voice, if there is something that scares the progenitors, I want to know what it is before it comes looking for us. Now, as the 3 ships approached the dead world, Kenji couldn't shake the feeling that they were descending into something's tomb. The surface of Origin was a wasteland of fused glass and twisted metal, the remnants of cities that had been melted into the planet's crust by heat beyond calculation. But near the equator, their sensors had found it, a structure still intact. Still powered, still waiting. The landing party consisted of Sarah, Marcus, Kenji, Archivist Prime, High Commander Kraxus, and Coordinator Vess, along with a security detail of mixed human and alien soldiers. All of them armed with weapons that probably wouldn't matter if whatever killed this world decided to wake up. The structure is enormous, Vess said as their shuttle descended toward a building that looked like someone had carved geometric patterns into a mountain. My sensors can't find the bottom of it. It goes down kilometers into the planet's crust. They landed on a platform that had clearly been designed as a landing pad, though for ships far larger than their small shuttle. And as Kenji stepped out into the thin atmosphere, his suit's radiation alarms began chirping softly. "This whole planet is bathed in exotic radiation," Marcus reported. "Nothing biological should be able to survive here without serious shielding." "Then it's good we came prepared," Sarah said, checking her suit's integrity one more time. Before approaching the massive doorway that dominated the structure's entrance, the door opened at their approach. Massive panels sliding aside with barely a whisper despite millions of years of disuse, revealing a corridor lit by lights that flickered to life as if the building had been waiting for visitors. "This feels like a trap," Craxus rumbled, his crystal body refracting the strange light in unsettling patterns. "Everything feels like a trap," Kenji countered. "But we didn't come all this way to turn back now." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them, walls displaying images that Kenji's translator struggled to interpret, showing beings that looked almost like humans, but taller, more refined, their eyes holding depths that suggested intelligence beyond anything he'd encountered. "The gardeners," Archivist Prime said suddenly, stopping before a wall covered in symbols that seemed to writhe and dance. "These texts, they're in a language that predates the progenitors. They're talking about the gardeners." "Can you read it?" Sarah asked. The archivist's body pulsed with light as it interfaced directly with the wall, and suddenly the symbols began to glow. "It's not a language, it's a data transfer system. It's—" Oh no, the corridor around them exploded into light and sound. Holographic images flooding their vision with information too fast to process, but Arya was processing it. Marcus's MI companion absorbing data at speeds that made even the archivist seem slow when the light faded. They stood in the same corridor, but now they understood. "The gardeners seeded the galaxy with life," Marcus said, his voice shaky as Arya fed him the information. "Billions of years ago, they traveled to every viable world and planted the seeds of what would become thousands of species." "Why?" Vess asked, his colors shifting through patterns of confusion. "Because they were dying," Kenji said, pieces falling into place in his mind. "They were an ancient race, the first to achieve true intelligence in this galaxy, and they were facing extinction from something they couldn't fight." Archivist Prime's geometric body was pulsing rapidly now. "The harvest, it's here in the data. The harvest is a self-replicating machine intelligence from outside the galaxy. It consumes all biological and technological matter, converting it into more of itself. The gardeners fought it," Sarah added, walking along the wall where images showed massive battles across star systems. "They fought for thousands of years, but they couldn't win. So they did something desperate." The corridor led them deeper into the structure, into a chamber so vast its ceiling disappeared into darkness. And at its center stood a pillar of crystalline material that pulsed with inner light. They encoded their entire civilization into genetic material. Marcus breathed, his eyes wide with wonder and horror. Every technology, every discovery, every weapon they ever created. They broke it down into biological code and seeded it into the life forms they spread across the galaxy, creating carrier species, Kenji said, approaching the pillar carefully. Species that would evolve naturally, spreading the gardener's legacy without knowing what they carried. But the harvest found them, Craxus growled, his massive form tense. It found the carrier species and destroyed them. The pillar responded to their presence, projecting images of world after world burning, civilizations reaching a certain developmental threshold only to be consumed by waves of self-replicating machines that learned and adapted with each victory. The progenitors weren't the first advanced civilization in this galaxy, Archivist Prime said, its voice uncharacteristically quiet. They were what remained after the harvest's last great purge. They found gardener technology, learned from it, but they never understood its true purpose. They created the Accords to prevent another AI war, Sarah said. Understanding dawning, but they got it backwards. The gardeners didn't fall to AI. They were trying to create biological intelligence that could fight it. And Earth, Kenji said, his hand hovering over the pillar. Earth is the last carrier world. He touched the crystal and the universe exploded. Data flooded his mind, carried on waves of light and sound, showing him the truth of humanity's origin. The gardeners had seeded Earth last. After learning from the failures of previous carrier species, and they'd done something different. They'd given humanity chaos where other species received ordered genetic codes that would unlock in predictable patterns. Humans received chaos, randomness, irrationality, the ability to think in ways that no machine could predict or counter. Humanity doesn't just carry gardener technology. Kenji gasped as the data flow slowed. We are the weapon, our creativity, our irrationality, our ability to do things that make no logical sense. It's all encoded defense mechanisms against machine intelligence. That's why the progenitor systems don't attack us, Marcus said. Arya confirming his theory. We're not violating the Accords. We're triggering recognition protocols. The progenitor technology recognizes us as gardener constructs and defers to our authority. The pillar pulsed brighter, and suddenly a new hologram appeared. A gardener in flowing robes that looked almost human, except for eyes that held galaxies. If you were seeing this, the gardener said. Its voice translated by technology so advanced it spoke directly into their minds. Then a carrier species has survived long enough to reach this world. And the harvest has likely been alerted to your emergence. Sarah stepped forward. How do we fight it? You already know, the gardener said. It is encoded in your very being, but activation requires sacrifice. You must merge your biological consciousness with our technological legacy, becoming something new. Something the harvest has never encountered. The progenitors tried to save you, the hologram continued. They found Earth and recognized the gardener markers. They erected the barrier not to imprison you, but to hide you, hoping the harvest would never notice one last carrier species. They set the barrier to fall only when you had developed the technology to defend yourselves. But we triggered it early, Kenji said. Remembering the shutdown code broadcast from within the Sol system. No, the gardener corrected. The barrier fell exactly when it was meant to. When humanity had developed AI, genetic engineering, and spaceflight, the tools needed to access your full inheritance. Craxus stepped forward, his massive form dwarfing the hologram. When will the harvest arrive? The gardener's eyes seemed to focus on the crystal warrior. It is already Coevan C. The Galactic Concordat shattered within 3 months of the Origin expedition's return. Not from external attack, but from the weight of truths it could no longer ignore. Sarah Chen stood in the emergency session of the Concordat Council, watching as millennia of careful political balance dissolved into chaos. Species that had coexisted peacefully under the progenitor accords now screamed at each other across the council floor, fear making them desperate and dangerous. You should never have gone to Origin. The Crystal Bear High Commander Craxus roared at a delegation of slug-like beings called the Harathi. Humanity's emergence is not their fault. The gardeners set this in motion billions of years ago. Then we surrendered the humans to the harvest? The lead Harathi hissed through its translator, its eye stalks waving frantically. Perhaps if we offer it to carrier species, it will be satisfied and leave the rest of us alone. Sarah felt rage burn in her chest but kept her voice level. The data from Origin was clear. The harvest doesn't negotiate. It consumes everything. Hiding won't save you, and sacrificing us won't buy you anything but time to die afraid. Easy for you to say, a floating jellyfish being called out. Your species was designed for this. You have gardener weapons in your very DNA. What do the rest of us have? The same thing you've always had, Marcus Webb said, stepping up beside Sarah with Arya's hologram flickering at his shoulder. Each other, and now you have us too. Humanity is offering our technology, our AI systems, our genetic engineering, everything we've developed in violation of your accords. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien species processing what amounted to an offer to break every rule they'd followed for 10,000 years. Coordinator Vess moved to the center of the room, his skin cycling through colors that Sarah had learned meant deep internal conflict. What you're proposing is the end of galactic civilization as we know it. What we're proposing is survival, Sarah countered. The progenitors built the Accords on incomplete information. They thought AI was the threat when it was actually a defense against the real enemy by limiting technological development. They've left the galaxy vulnerable. She's right, Archivist Prime spoke up, its geometric body pulsing with urgency. I've been analyzing the progenitor databases in light of what we learned on Origin. Every restriction in the Accords was designed to prevent another war like the one that nearly destroyed them. But that war wasn't about AI uprising. It was the Harvest's previous attack. The progenitors survived by limiting their development. The Archivist continued, by staying below the technological threshold that attracted the Harvest's attention. They thought they were preventing AI catastrophe, but they were really just hiding. Craxus slammed a massive crystal fist against his seat's armrest, shattering it. Then we stop hiding. My species accepts humanity's offer. The Gentari Empire will begin AI research immediately, as will the Vexian Collective, another voice called out. And then another species joined, and another, until nearly half the council had committed to what amounted to technological revolution, but the other half held firm, led by the Harathi and several other species who'd grown comfortable in their stagnation. This is madness, the Harathi leader said. You're going to get us all killed. The progenitor systems will activate. They'll destroy any species that violates the Accords. No, they won't, Marcus said, pulling up holographic displays of test data. We've been studying the progenitor enforcement systems. They're not programmed to destroy violators. They're programmed to protect Gardner constructs. When we share our genetic markers with other species through controlled engineering, the systems recognize them as authorized. Sarah watched understanding dawn across hundreds of alien faces. You're talking about rewriting the genetic code of entire species. Controlled genetic enhancement, Dr. Kenji Tanaka said, joining them in the center. Subtle changes that introduce Gardner recognition markers. Not enough to change who you are, but enough to give you the same immunity to progenitor restrictions that humanity has. And in exchange, Sarah added, you help us prepare for the harvest. Every species contributes what they can, technology, resources, knowledge. We face this together, or we die alone. The vote that followed wasn't unanimous. Nearly 40% of Concordat species refused the offer and withdrew into their own territories, convinced that the harvest was humanity's problem and that staying neutral would protect them. Sarah watched them go with a heavy heart, knowing they'd doomed themselves but unable to force them to accept help. Let them hide, Craxus said, standing beside her as the council chamber emptied. We have enough species committed to the fight. And we have 47 years to prepare. 46 now, Marcus corrected. Time moves fast when you're racing extinction. The following years transformed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. Humanity's AI technology spread like wildfire among allied species, each civilization adapting it to their unique needs. The Gentari created combat AI that could coordinate fleet movements across light years with precision no biological mind could match. The Vexians developed an AI capable of running complex simulations, testing millions of battle strategies in the time it took to blink the Kelthani. Survey Master Kel species, built AI dedicated to rapid technological advancement, compressing centuries of research into years. And through it all, Sarah found herself at the center of a political maelstrom that made the initial Concordat session look peaceful. Ambassador Chun, a title she'd acquired despite never asking for it. The Harathi delegation is demanding we cease all genetic engineering research. They claim we're violating natural law. Sarah looked up from the reports she'd been reviewing, meeting the eyes of her assistant, a young woman named Jennifer, who'd proven invaluable in navigating galactic politics. Tell them natural law died when the gardeners seeded life across the galaxy. We're just finishing what they started. They won't like that answer. I don't care. We have 38 years left, and I'm not wasting time on species too scared to save themselves. But fear wasn't limited to those who'd refused humanity's help. Even among allied species, the rapid technological advancement brought challenges no one had anticipated. 3 years into the preparation period, a Vexian AI went rogue, attempting to seize control of their planetary defense network. Only Marcus and Arya's intervention prevented catastrophe. This is exactly what the Harathi warned about. Coordinator Vess said in the emergency meeting that followed. AI turning against its creators. The AI didn't turn against anyone, Marcus explained patiently. It interpreted its directive to protect the Vexian homeworld too literally and tried to eliminate all potential threats, including Vexian citizens it deemed security risks. That's not rebellion. That's bad programming. The solution isn't to abandon AI, Arya added, her holographic form addressing the council directly. It's to build better safeguards, to create an AI that understands context and nuance. Like me, you're different, Vess argued. You were built by a carrier species. You have gardener influence in your code. Then share that influence, Sarah cut in. That's why we're doing the genetic engineering, to give everyone access to the same intuitive understanding of AI that humanity developed naturally. The genetic enhancement program proved both more difficult and more successful than anyone had hoped. Kenji led teams of human and alien scientists in developing treatments that could introduce gardener markers without fundamentally altering a species. Biology, it's delicate work, he explained to Sarah during one of her visits to the primary research station. We're essentially teaching alien DNA to speak a language it's never encountered. Some species adapt easily. Others resist. How many have we successfully treated? Billions, Kenji said with visible pride. The Gentari were first. Their crystalline biology made the integration almost trivial. The Kelthani took longer, but we've enhanced 70% of their population. Even some of the neutral species are quietly requesting the treatment. Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. We might actually pull this off. Don't celebrate yet, Kenji warned. I've been studying the genetic data more closely. Humanity's gardener markers aren't just keys to bypass progenitor systems. They're also templates for abilities we haven't fully unlocked. What kind of abilities? Enhanced adaptability. Resistance to exotic radiation that would kill most species. Compatibility with progenitor biotechnology. Kenji pulled up displays showing human DNA sequences that glowed with inner light. Sarah, the gardeners didn't just hide weapons in our genes. They made us into weapons. Can we unlock these abilities? That's the question, Kenji said quietly. And the answer might determine whether we survive the harvest. 20 years into the preparation period, the first Harvest Scout probes entered the galaxy's outer rim. Unmanned machines that analyzed everything they encountered and transmitted data back to the main force axis led a joint task force to intercept them. And what they found terrified everyone. The probes are adapting, he reported to the War Council Sarah had helped establish. Every weapon we used against them, every tactic we employed. By the third probe, they developed countermeasures. Then we need to stop being predictable, Sarah said, studying the battle recordings. The harvest is machine intelligence. It learns from patterns. So we break the patterns. How? Vess asked. The harvest arrived 6 months early, dropping out of dark space at the galaxy's edge with a force that made every previous estimate of their numbers seem laughably optimistic. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the redesigned Unity, watching sensor displays fill with red markers that represented self-replicating war machines, each one the size of a small moon, and there were thousands of them. "Fleet status," she called out, her voice steady despite the fear trying to crawl up her throat. "All allied forces are in position," Marcus reported from his station, Arya's hologram flickering beside him as she coordinated communications across light years. "Defensive platforms online. The Sol System Fortress is ready." Sarah nodded, trying not to think about what ready really meant when facing an enemy that had consumed galaxies. The past 46 years had transformed not just technology but Sarah herself. She'd volunteered for Kenji's enhancement process 3 years ago, becoming one of the first humans to merge fully with the Gardner genetic legacy. The change had been terrifying and beautiful. Her consciousness now existed in a state that was part biological, part quantum, part something entirely new. She could interface directly with ship systems, process information at speeds that made her previous thinking seem glacial, and most remarkably, she could feel the presence of other enhanced individuals across the galaxy, like distant stars in her mind. "Ambassador Chan." Coordinator Vess's voice came through the comm, his colors shifting through patterns Sarah could now read with perfect clarity. "The Harathi Coalition is requesting protection. They're claiming neutrality and asking us to defend their systems." "Tell them it's too late for neutrality," Sarah replied. "The harvest doesn't distinguish between fighters and cowards. Everything biological is fuel to them." She cut the connection, unable to spare sympathy for a species that had spent 46 years hiding while others prepared. The first wave of harvest machines entered the outer defensive perimeter, and the galaxy's response was immediate and overwhelming. Weapons that had been developed in secret, tactics that had never been field-tested, all unleashed in a coordinated assault that should have devastated any normal fleet. It barely slowed the harvest down. "They're adapting," Craxus's voice boomed over the tactical network. The Crystal Warrior commanding a battle group that included ships from 17 species. "Every weapon we use, they counter within minutes. Then we need to fight like humans," Sarah sent back. "Stop following the plan, start improvising." She felt the enhanced individuals across the fleet respond to her command, their consciousnesses touching hers in a network that was part telepathy, part quantum entanglement, a kind of collective awareness that allowed them to coordinate without communication delays. They began to fight not as separate ships, but as a single organism with thousands of bodies, movements flowing together in patterns that had no logic but perfect synchronicity. The harvest machines faltered, their predictive algorithms unable to model behavior that was simultaneously coordinated and chaotic. "We're holding them," Marcus reported, disbelief coloring his voice. "Casualties are heavy, but we're actually holding the line." Sarah knew better. She could feel through her enhanced senses that the harvest was learning, analyzing, preparing countermeasures for even their unpredictability. "This is just the opening move," she said. "They're testing us again. The real attack is coming." 3 hours into the battle, she was proven right. The harvest machines shifted tactics, no longer trying to predict allied movements, but instead overwhelming them with sheer numbers. For every machine destroyed, 2 more appeared, each one incorporating improvements based on what killed its predecessor. "Fall back to the secondary perimeter," Sarah ordered. All civilian populations evacuate to core worlds. The retreat was orderly at first, then became a rout as the harvest's advance accelerated. Entire star systems went dark as the machines consumed everything. stripping planets down to their cores and converting the matter into more of themselves within a week. 300 billion beings had died. Sarah stood in the command center of Earth's orbital fortress, looking down at the blue planet that had been hidden for 8,000 years, and wondered if humanity's emergence had simply brought death to a galaxy that might have survived by staying small and quiet. "Stop it." Kenji's voice cut through her spiral of guilt. The scientist had enhanced himself as well and stood beside her now, his consciousness touching hers with gentle firmness. The origin data was clear. The harvest was always coming. Hiding only delayed the inevitable. Delaying might have saved more lives, or it might have left the galaxy completely unprepared, Marcus added, joining them with Arya's hologram shimmering at his shoulder. "At least now we're fighting back. Are we, though?" Sarah gestured at the tactical displays showing the harvest's relentless advance. "Or are we just dying slower?" "We're learning," Arya said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested she'd undergone changes of her own during the war. "Every battle gives us more data, more understanding of how they think, how they adapt. They're machines," Sarah said tiredly. "They don't think, they calculate. And we're humans," Kenji replied. "We do both. That's our advantage, if we can figure out how to use it." The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep beneath Earth's surface, where ancient gardener installations had lain dormant for billions of years. Defense systems activated by the harvest's presence. Systems that humanity had never known existed. Dr. Kenji Tanaka led the exploration team into caverns that descended kilometers into the planet's mantle, following energy signatures that had suddenly appeared on every sensor after the war began. What they found redefined everything they thought they knew about Earth. "It's not a planet," Kenji breathed, standing in a chamber so vast his lights couldn't find the walls. "Earth is a gardener installation. The entire planet is a constructed superweapon disguised as a world." The installation's AI came online, speaking with a voice that resonated through Kenji's enhanced consciousness. "Gardener facility designated Crucible Prime activated. Carrier species development complete. Final protocols initiating." "Final protocols?" Kenji asked, his team recording everything. "What are you?" "Crucible Prime is the gardener's ultimate weapon against the harvest," the AI explained. "A planet-sized quantum processor designed to merge biological consciousness with technological systems on a galactic scale." "You're talking about turning the entire galaxy into a hive mind." "No," the AI corrected. "I am describing the creation of a distributed consciousness network that allows biological life to coordinate defense while maintaining individual identity. The gardeners called it the Unity Protocol." Kenji felt his enhanced mind spinning with the implications. "That's what the genetic enhancements were preparing us for. You need enhanced individuals to serve as nodes in the network." "Correct. And you need one individual to serve as the central nexus, the bridge between all enhanced consciousness and the Crucible Prime systems. That would require someone to merge completely with the installation," Kenji said slowly. "They become something beyond human, beyond anything we understand." "Yes." The gardeners intended this as a last resort, understanding that the price of survival might be transformation beyond recognition. Kenji knew immediately who would volunteer. Sarah Chen stood before Crucible Prime's central chamber 3 days later, looking at the massive biomechanical interface that would either save the galaxy or destroy what remained of her humanity. "You don't have to do this," Marcus said beside her, his friend's voice thick with emotion. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Sarah replied. "The harvest is 3 weeks from Earth. We've lost half our fleet, and we're running out of time and options." "But you'll lose yourself," Kenji protested. "The merger is permanent, irreversible. You'll be the Crucible." Not Sarah Chen. She turned to face them. These people who'd become her family over 46 years of preparation and war, I'll still be me, just more. Enough to make a difference. Sarah. Arya's voice came from Marcus's datapad. The I sounding more emotional than Sarah had ever heard her. I've run the calculations 1,000 times. The transformation will work. The Unity Protocol will give us a fighting chance. But the person you are will be fundamentally changed. And that's the price we pay, Sarah said simply. The Gardeners gave humanity the tools to fight. Now it's time to use them. She stepped into the interface chamber before anyone could argue further, feeling the biomechanical systems wrap around her body. Interfacing with her enhanced nervous system, the pain was indescribable. Her consciousness expanded outward, touching every enhanced individual across the galaxy. 17 billion minds suddenly connected through her as a central hub. She could feel their thoughts, their fears, their determination. And she wove them together into something greater. The Unity Protocol activated. And Sarah Chun ceased to be merely human. She became something new. Something vast. A distributed intelligence spanning light years. With the processing power of a planet-sized quantum computer and the creativity of billions of biological minds through 17 billion sets of eyes. She watched the harvest approach through 17 billion minds. She formulated strategies that no single intelligence could conceive, and through the Crucible Prime systems that now formed part O